Hello, beautiful community. Just a tiny porridge episode today, just a way for 3 minutes for us to connect, because I'm making a short, very short video that'll be on the main channel tomorrow. So where are we? Let's hit just for 30 seconds here and there a few of the things people are thinking about. So we have said that there is a politics worth attending to behind the conversation about Zaporizhia risk, and the nuclear stuff has to be left to nuclear experts. But the politics behind it is that Mr. Putin is not interested in the globalization and internationalization of the war today. He wants that later. Therefore, while the Russians are eminently capable of doing something nasty, and I don't have a full understanding of exactly what it is they can do, that would run against a key strategic interest of theirs as they themselves understand it. But that doesn't settle anything, because they might have other interests, and sometimes tactical concerns get ahead of strategic long distance aspirations. So when somebody acts against, here we're doing our regular stuff of talking about talking, but when somebody acts against a strategic interest, that doesn't mean they're being irrational, right? But is there at least one major strategic interest that points toward it being self-defeating for Russia to create a terrible incident, if that's possible? That doesn't settle the conversation, though. But I just wanted to again reaffirm that, and we need to watch what happens. I would be careful about reading too much into what's said on Russian Telegram channels, because it's important with each channel to understand how they're engaging in informational politics. So why is this being said, and for whom? Right? We'll keep that conversation rolling. Second, a wonderful Russian journalist badly beaten and injured with a lawyer in Chechnya. And a few questions have come in about that. I won't say anything at length. The crime has a recognizable signature. It's atypical for something like that to happen without there being a nod from the top in Chechnya. And let's make a facetious remark. When it comes to causing TBI to journalists and breaking female journalists' fingers in 14 places, the Chechens are very good at that. But when they're asked to go to Rostov and confront an armed militia, they get stuck in the traffic jam. There is actually an interesting political remark there that it would have been a catastrophe if any bit of Kadyrov's National Guard engaged with Prigozhin's folks, by the way, because any armed Chechen folks on Russian territory engaging in any violence, doesn't matter against who, would be looked upon very, 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 very badly. Kadyrov's folks engaging in violence on Russian territory would not be recognized by Russia as anything other than by Russians as anything other than a real affront, and they would all side with Wagner in that hypothetical scenario, even if Kadyrov were doing what Putin told him. fascinating long-term dynamics. Of course, we're going to discuss what happens if you remove Putin and Kadyrov, what happens to Russia and Chechnya. Mr. Surovikin is still, it seems, not in contact with his family, except for that single phone call that we are reliably or unreliably told occurred a few days ago. The politics here is that implicating Surovikin with Prigozhin's mutiny is very damaging for the Putin regime. Very, very damaging. I mean, it just deepens the perception of the crack. It wasn't just Wagner, it was bits of the army, right, that were potentially going over to the side organizing the mutiny. And then the other way around, if Mr. Surovikin did indeed engage with, or at least was aware of this project of Prigozhin's as it developed, this mutinous project, you can't not punish him. But you can't punish him. But you can't not punish him. But you can't punish him. I mean, you can punish him, but it's very damaging. Very damaging. So if Surovikin genuinely is involved in any way, even very partially, it's a very tricky situation for the Kremlin. Very, very tricky indeed. Final remark. I can't emphasize enough what I said earlier about the panic and terror at the top of the Putin regime, as this is my interpretation, that was induced by Mr. Prigozhin's mutiny. And that is telling. That is telling. And of course, while it's not possible to say, oh, there are going to be other mutinies by other autonomous, quasi-autonomous armies, simply because, well, Mr. Kadyrov isn't in a position to do anything, and the other quasi-autonomous armies are in fact at the moment very well controlled by the Ministry of Defense in Russia. So that's not on the cards, but at least you could ask a question about it. And so, something that's felt completely exceptional, challenging the Kremlin arms in hand, has been to a degree irreversibly routinized, right? But back to the thought I was just sharing a moment ago, the panic in the Putin regime that I believe occurred is extraordinary and was commensurate with, well, perhaps it was commensurate, right, with an armed convoy heading for the capital, but it was a sort of business dispute that was becoming uncontrolled and uncontrollably political, and could have gone in any one of several unpredictable ways, created what I called a sort of inadvertent revolutionary or pre-revolutionary situation. Then a few other ingredients were missing to realize that, and it was predictable that they were missing. But still, I think even to that, we're looking at something that's a sort of overreaction, which creates this sort of very interesting picture of how these people are excessively self-assured and excessively terrified. Every step for them is existential because they think the whole thing could just fall apart, on the one hand. On the other hand, they want to take on NATO in 2029. That's an interesting combination. I'm going to be with you on the main channel probably for about 6 minutes tomorrow. Looking forward to that. Lots of love for now. Bye-bye.